Hi everybody, I'm Fiona. This week I thought I'd make just a quick little video to summarise last week's Drift Skills event. Obviously my first driving event and the car's first drift event, so I thought I'd do a bit of a wrap up of how things went, both of the car and myself. The car really did perform very well, beyond my expectations, and even though it might be a simple build, and even though it might be very sloppy and not well refined or dialed in, for someone who doesn't know any better, I believe the car did very well. And there were a few notable exceptions. The first one is that there wasn't a lot of grip in the front or the rear, and that was noticeable on track, particularly when I ran into the tyres. The problem there was that there wasn't any grip. I was understeering, and that in part was because of debris on the track, but also because the tyres separately, the rear tyres, they didn't have a lot of grip either. So when I did put the foot on the pedal, yeah, they span, which was good, but I didn't get a lot of forward momentum, and this is noticeable on a few occasions where while I was drifting that I just simply ran out of speed and there was I wasn't going forward. But beyond that, obviously the front of the car is ran into the tyre wall. There's no real damage on the front of the car. Yes, there's a few sort of black rubber marks here and there because obviously you know, I've rubbed into a tyre wall. The number plate it's bent in a bit. It looks a little bit mangled, but I mean, essentially nothing. I mean, I didn't feel a sudden stop or anything. If the tyres weren't there, I probably would have almost come to a stop reasonably quickly anyway. There was no sudden loss of momentum, and this is one of the reasons why I was laughing so hard when that happened. And a combination of inexperienced driver, bad tyres, and everything. It just all went wrong, but it was funny, sort of. And I mean, no damage, so why wouldn't you laugh? Suspension wise, it's a stock car. I know there's some stiffer springs in the rear, lowered stiffer springs, but the front is soft, and I've been told to dial the suspension in by people who are probably very serious about their drifting. But other people have said, no, just keep it simple, just seat time's what you want right now. You know, improve easily or lightly the things that you need to improve. But don't worry too much or invest too much into massively increasing the suspension on the car just yet. Seat time's more important, and I've got to agree. I mean, seat time really is still everything at my level of drifting. I did have a couple of problems with some of the mods that I did do. The hydro handle, when I designed it, I sat in the seat a lot and I was pulling it like down my side, and I lined up the handle not only in the right sort of place but also so that I was pulling it in a correct line through the handle. But in actual driving I noticed I was pulling it towards me, and because of the handle was getting pulled over, and slowly but surely the handle ended up basically almost rubbing on the steering wheel. So I need to, one, realign the handle, turn it around a little bit. Two, the mount that I've made, I need to make it out of a thicker metal, a heavier gauge, just so that it's more rigid and won't flex that way. Also, one of the hydraulic, one of the connectors on the master there, the thread wasn't very good originally, and I did end up running some tape around it, but either the brake fluid ate through the tape or it just wasn't good to start with. It's not a pressure connector, it's only running up to the reserve, but it does seep through there. So probably I'll not only realign the whole handle but replace that master cylinder so that I get a proper seal, and with a thicker gauge and a realignment, that whole setup will be a lot more solid. And also probably adjust it so that when I pull it, that I don't have to pull it from all the way forward to all the way back before I get a lock on the brakes, because obviously a shorter pull would be better. hopefully, the short pull. Other problem I had was that the in the power steering system, the return line from the rack heading through to the cooler, that the two 10mm pipes that were originally part of the equipment, that I've joined them up with a joiner. Somehow on the day, one side of that joiner came loose, and I lost a lot of fluid through that. It was just dripping out continuously. One of the instructors noticed my car was leaking and said, "Oh, what's going on with that? You better go fix it." And I found it was just loose. Like there was no tension on it at all. So I've tightened that up, and then I've wrapped a rag around it just in case there were any further dripping came through. But unfortunately, because I didn't take any spare fluid with me, that I was running with low fluid for the rest of the day, which meant that while sometimes the steering was light and free as it should be, sometimes it would just suddenly come to a stop and go heavy because obviously there was no fluid in the system. As far as from here on in, other than fixing, obviously getting new tyres on probably 17 and 18 inch rims, which I've been told is definitely the go. And I have rims, I just don't have tyres. Separate to that, fixing that hydro handle, turning it around, replacing that master, making that a lot more solid. Obviously firming up that joiner, and maybe just give the front a little bit of a polish because you know, we don't want the car to look all messed up now. It's meant to be pretty, isn't it? No. The car performed really well, and so I'm going to get all of those things done. Plus, I'm sitting on, and you can hear in a couple of the clips, the thrust bearing was bad before I even began, and noisy, and you could tell it sounded like there was something really wrong with the engine, but you push the clutch pedal down and the noise completely goes away. Definitely a thrust bearing. I'm in two minds as to, and it wouldn't be a big job just to pull the gearbox off at the back and replace that thrust bearing, even though I wouldn't be replacing the clutch. It's not a big job, but I would be happier to do that, so I might get onto that as well. And then lastly, before my next drift event, I really want to put in a roll cage, at least a half cage, just so that, you know, there's no rollover problem. It does then allow me to have passengers in the car, and passengers I'd be looking to have in the car would be people who know how to drift, who can in car help me become a better drifter, give me some pointers. Not really passenger rides for thrills because, well, I'm not going to give you a thrill ride, I'm not that good as yet. As far as I went on the day, I have previously had experience with skids and slides, but it was a long time ago. The theory of actually drifting and then connecting corners and keeping a drift going. There's a lot of clips where I drift and then I straighten up and then I reinitiate the drift, usually with the handbrake, and then do the next corner. They're not really linked, and that is going to be a seat time thing. I need to obviously work on that. So from here on in, from now, obviously beyond fixing those couple of things, I mean, the car's still literally on the trailer where I parked it after the weekend. I'll get the car off the trailer, we'll fix those things, probably book into the next available practice day that Vic Drift runs, which is a lot more open and free. Get those things fixed, some new tyres and at least a half cage, and then I'll be at the next event, and hopefully I'll see you there so that we can enjoy going sideways together. Anyway, that's it from me today. I hope you have a good one. Bye.